2016. We're going to start section 3 today, but first off, your bell work will be to turn to page 380, define the 4 key terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, define the 5 key terms: indigenous, non-government organization, Swahili, genocide, and AIDS. Please define these terms for your bell work today. Today's 2 goals for our lesson are to compare and contrast common cultural traits in Southeast Africa, and also explain civil war and genocide. So if you'll get out some notebook paper and follow along here, we'll take some notes today for this lesson. Starting on page 380. Southern and Eastern Africa have a wealth of natural resources. What are natural resources? Okay. This region also faces unique and serious challenges. Some of its nations have had more success than others in building peace and prosperity. So what would be a problem in building peace and prosperity? So, first title, a variety of ethnic groups and religions. Most people in Southeast Africa are indigenous or native to this region. There are many different groups of people in the region. They belong to hundreds of different ethnic groups, speak different languages, and practice different religions. Now let's get into the couple different ethnic groups here in Southeast Africa. Some ethnic groups live in one country or a single country. Others stretch across different borders. Few countries are made up of one ethnic group. So we have a bunch of different ethnic groups living in different countries in Southeast Africa. The largest group of ethnic people are the Zulu and the Xhosa, who live in South Africa. The Kikuyu live in Kenya. The Hutu and the Tutsi live in Rwanda. In the past, different ethnic groups lived in different lifestyles. Example, the Mahasai in Kenya and Tanzania herded cattle. The Bangada in Uganda farmed and lived in large villages. However, today, many people live in cities and they don't live in villages and huts like they do in the past. They no longer live the way the ancestors did back years ago. Okay. Moving on to page 381 and language. The diverse people of Southeast Asia speak many different languages. Obviously, because there's many different ethnic groups. Most belong to the Bantu language family, which migrated from West Central Africa down to Southeast Africa. And as they moved down our map, look up on the map there, remember they moved to Southern and Eastern Africa and spread their language and culture as they moved. Most belong to the Bantu language family. The fact is a legacy of Bantu migrations, what we just talked about. Languages from the outside this region have also made inroads. So languages from outside of the region, maybe West Central Africa, have moved into Southeast Africa. English is spoken as a second language in countries that were once a part of the British Empire. Remember, Great Britain was in charge of 6 countries. They controlled 6 countries at one point. Okay, Arab influence is widespread throughout this region. Arabic is spoken in Sudan. It also helped create the Swahili language. Swahili is a Bantu language. It is unique because it has many Arabic elements and words from other languages. For example, when you count from 1 to 10 in Swahili, 3 of the numbers come from Arabic, while 7 are Bantu. Swahili developed because of trade between East Africa and Arab countries. Now let's move into the different religions in this area. Many people in Southeast Africa practiced indigenous African languages. Others practice Islam or Christianity. Christianity is the strongest religion in the southern part of the region. Islam is mostly practiced in the northern parts of this region. Okay, so as we went over the variety of ethnic groups and religions here in Southeast Africa, let's do a reading check here. What are 3 indigenous groups in southern and eastern Africa? Okay, now on page 381, let's use this graph here to answer a couple questions. Which 2 religions are most widely practiced in this area? That's the first question. Number 2, what percentage of people practiced Islam? Okay, now let's go over some questions here. Describe the relationship between ethnic groups and country borders in southern and eastern Africa. All right. What is one Arab influence on this region? Now, how did Swahili develop? Okay, now that concludes a variety of ethnic groups and religions in Southeast Africa. So, one of our goals, compare and contrast common cultural traits. So, as we look through here, and we talked about the different ethnic groups and religions, and the languages, and the religions, let's summarize and compare and contrast. Which ones are the same? Which ones are different? Why did some of these languages / ethnic groups, religions spread throughout Southeast Africa? Okay, moving to page 382. Well, hold on a second. Let's check on somebody here. The Jack of Diamonds. All right, I had to check on the Jack of Diamonds. He's doing okay. I thought I heard him talking to me this morning. Okay, so moving on to page 382. As Europeans carved up, the title here, Conflict in Southern and Eastern Africa Today, on page 382. As Europeans carved up Africa, meaning when European countries came to Africa and took over the countries, they created many new countries. They drew borders without any regard to certain ethnic groups that were already living in that area. Sometimes one ethnic group would be divided within 2 countries. In other places, opposing ethnic groups were included in the same country. They fought for power. These ethnic groups fought for power after the European countries left the Southeast African countries. Okay? So, 2 of the most deadly conflicts in recent years have taken place in Sudan and Rwanda. The first one let's talk about is the conflict in Sudan. Let's take a look at the map here and see where Sudan is over there. You see it on the map? Or maybe it's this way. Okay, now, Sudan is divided among many different ethnic groups. In the north, most people are Arabic and practice Islam. In the south of Sudan, most people belong to other ethnic groups and are not Muslims. After independence from what? Northerners dominated the country. Southerners rebelled 2 times. This led to 2 civil wars between the North and the South. The wars continued up until 2005 and killed several million people. Now, since 2003, Darfur has been the scene of another bloody conflict. Darfur is a region in the west left on the map, West Sudan. Black farmers have fought Arab herders over scarce water supply. So now we're seeing people fighting over scarce or little water resources. The herders support the Sudanese government, while the farmers do not like the Sudan government. Militias of herders with government backing have attacked civilian farmers. Hundreds of thousands of people, mostly black farmers, have been killed. Many more have been forced to flee their homes. Many people call the Darfur conflict a genocide. What is a genocide? It's a term we did earlier today. Anyone? Raise your hand. Okay. Did you say an attempt to destroy a whole people, meaning genocide, wipe out a whole class of people? Okay, so that wraps up the conflict in Sudan. Now we're going to transition to a couple questions here. How are the people in northern and Sudan different? That's what I want you to put on your paper. Write that down. How are the people in northern and southern Sudan different? In the north, most people are Arab and Muslims. In the south, most people belong to other ethnic groups and are not Muslim. Now, next thing you need to write on your paper here. How did these differences lead to civil war? Muslims dominated the country, so southern Sudan people rebelled. All right, so now let's talk about the conflict in Rwanda. Like we said, 2 of the biggest conflicts have taken place in Sudan. We just wrapped up Sudan. Now we're going to talk about the genocide or an attempt to destroy whole people in Rwanda on page 383. Rwanda has been a troubled history since the colonial period. Colonial period during the time when the Europeans controlled Rwanda. The country is divided between two ethnic groups, the majority Hutu and the minority Tutsi. Before Belgium colonized this region, so Belgium was in control of Rwanda. Before Belgium was in charge, the Tutsi formed an elite class that ruled the Hutu. The Belgians liked the Tutsis and used them to keep control of the Hutus. After the independence, so when Rwanda became independent, violence flared up against the Tutsi and the Hutu took control. Further fighting and struggles for power between the groups continued. So, before Belgium was in control, what African people were in control? The Tutsis. They made an elite class, and the Tutsi ruled the Hutu. After independence, the Tutsi